So I'm Matt. I'm with Treadstone Funding. Been the marketing director for the past 9 years or so. And we are really excited to start this new educational series. We're going to be doing 1 to 2 videos per month with local experts in various fields. Super excited that this is our first one. So for our first live stream video today, we're sitting down talking to Natalie Kaman, owner and main proprietor with At Home Staging and Design. She was our interior designer recommended to my wife and I and our family by our realtor on the last sale of our last house, as well as on the purchase of our new house. And she not only helped us to sell our last house for more money, but also helped us design our new house from day one so that it looked the way that we wanted to, and so that we had a house that fit the needs of our growing family. And you'll notice I'm in a Mickey Mouse t-shirt today because it's my son's 3rd birthday. So our whole house feels like it's a toy room right now. But when we worked with Natalie, she was able to help us really figure out the furniture, the colors that would work for a family with little kids. So whether you're looking for a modern house or a house that's going to work for your family or a really cool downtown bachelor pad, Natalie's company does an amazing job. So we're here today to discuss a couple different things, some 2020 design trends, hot paint colors, other things, and then we're also going to be taking questions. So at any point during this, if you have a question, please notice the chat button at the bottom of the screen. You can ask us any questions, and Natalie will do her best to answer. So Natalie, how are you doing today?
Good. Can you see me?
I cannot. Your video, I see your logo, but I don't see your video. Okay. So let me send you a little request on that video there.
Okay.
There we go. I can see you.
Hey guys, thank you for joining us.
Not surprisingly, is designed beautifully.
Thank you. Hi, Kristen.
So we can kind of get started with the first. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. So figured I would let you give everyone a quick introduction on yourself and your company, and then we can kind of get rolling with some question and answer.
Yes. So my name is Natalie Kaman. My company is At Home Design and Staging, and we partner with realtors, builders, homeowners, whether they're selling or dwelling, we say. So I started my company 7 years ago, and the way I got started was my husband was in real estate investment. So he was flipping a lot of houses, and he hired me to be his interior designer, doing all the paint selections, lighting, plumbing, and those types of things. And so we were very successful at that, and that was working out very well. And when we started doing some higher end flips later on, including some ones in East Grand Rapids, my husband came into some of these higher end homes and he said, "Oh, it just feels so cold and so bare. We got to stage this." And that time we had a realtor who was considered one of the top realtors in Grand Rapids, and she did not know any professional stagers. So we were kind of in a little bit of a hard spot. We wanted to list the house, but we wanted it staged. So I said, you know what? I've been to the Parade of Homes. I can do it. I know which companies will work with people to stage their houses. So I reached out to some local furniture stores, and that's how the staging side of my business started out. So since that time, it's been 7 years, and I do own my own warehouse. I have my own inventory that I use for staging houses. So I do consults for realtors, and then I also do staging for realtors and builders. And because of that, when people walk into houses sometimes and they see my card or my advertisement, then they say, well, we really want to work with her for this house we're moving into. Or so I have people request my design services. So I've added that to my business as well. So yeah, today we're going to be talking about 2020 design trends, because as you guys know, the trends with houses change quite a bit. And Matt had some really good questions that I think are going to help us to key in on what some of those changes are and what things we should be aware of.
Yeah, thank you. So, one of the things when it comes to trends that I hear all the time, and anytime I pull up a Google search, I feel like the number one thing people always want to know is what are the hot paint colors for this year? What colors are hot? What's going away? I know last year and in years prior, gray was huge. Is that still the big trend, or is that starting to fade?
Yes, I hear that question too. So we do say that gray is here to stay. However, it has become somewhat of a neutral. So we still are seeing some whites and some beiges and some grays. What isn't happening is what was popular, we'll say 7-8 years ago, is somebody might put in gray cabinets in their kitchen, then gray wall paint, then stainless steel appliances, and maybe a cool gray tile. And suddenly that space felt so cold. And they were like, why am I not getting the feeling that I wanted to in my brand new kitchen? So what we're doing with gray is we're pairing it with other warm tones, which works out really well with the golds that are popular right now, with the warm toned wood flooring that's popular right now. So all those things playing off the gray are making it still popular. So it's a neutral, and I do think it's here to stay. But some of the other popular colors, if you'll notice on Pinterest or House, or even if you're going to the local parade of homes here in Grand Rapids, people are really using those lighter, brighter paint colors for the majority of their house, especially the main living areas, so that the house can really feel connected from entry to living room to dining room and kitchen, and it doesn't feel really choppy and broken up. So we're seeing those lighter paint colors, and some of those are Benjamin Moore Gray Owl is a really popular one. The Benjamin Moore Classic Gray, which is fairly light. Benjamin Moore Balboa Mist. Benjamin Moore Edgecomb Gray. So all of those lighter, warmer, really light, warm tones are kind of what we're seeing that's really popular. But there is always the different big brand paint companies always do their paint colors of the year for 2020. So for instance, Sherwin-Williams, they did Naval, which is a dark navy. Pantone's color of the year was Classic Blue, and then PG or PPG paints was called Chinese Porcelain, and all those were blue tones. So we are hearing and seeing that blue is kind of another neutral that people are using a lot. But even though we know that the light colors are really popular in those main areas, people are using some more dramatic and dark colors for different accents in their home, whether that might be for some certain cabinetry in the house, or it could be for an accent wall. We do see some of those darker colors just used for dramatic purposes in certain accent areas.
Okay. And, that was super helpful. So painting is obviously a huge aspect, but the next one we always get is, what about hardware and lighting? Because it seems like lighting really makes a house. What's trendy right now when it comes to hardware, lighting? Is brass back, or has that gone away?
Okay, yes, the brass. People, when I go into people's houses to do like an occupied home staging consult, and maybe their house was built in the 1980s, and they have that bright brass cabinet hardware and door hardware everywhere, and they're like, well, I heard brass was back. And I always have to kind of re-educate them. Well, brass is back, but it's not the bright brass that we're used to. It's not that polished brass. It's actually called brushed brass. So just like there's brushed nickel, there's brushed brass. So that is back. But I would say the number one door hardware and cabinet style and for lighting and plumbing is the matte black. And I think that's because that can play, that can play right into that transitional look, also like contemporary and modern looks. So we do see the brass. The brass is in a lot of the lighting. We're seeing the brushed brass on like cabinet hardware and lighting. We're seeing it in like home accents. If you were nervous, if you're saying, I had brass in my house before and I'm too nervous to do it again, some easy ways of putting that into your house is cabinet hardware, because that's something that you can easily update, and it's not going to break the bank. Otherwise, mirrors in bathrooms, if you wanted to do a brushed brass mirror, those are some good places that you could add it without it being, if it does go out of style at some point, it's not going to be a huge headache to replace those items. But yeah, we are seeing the brass, including with the matte black in light fixtures and some other areas. I think it's a little bit of a hard call to say, let's go with all plumbing fixtures in a brushed brass in a bathroom, just because when you're going to replace those can be kind of spendy. But we're seeing the brushed brass, and it's probably, and most likely it's because it really plays well off of the grays and those dark navies and some of even the hunter greens that we're seeing. That brass just kind of helps pop with that. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So obviously hardware and lighting and paint are throughout your entire house, but what about the two biggest rooms that we usually hear from customers when they're buying a house? Everybody wants to know what's in and what's out for kitchens.
Yes, kitchens and bathrooms, yes, where we spend a lot of time and a lot of money. So when we've looked at the research, transitional kitchens and bathrooms are still the most popular. And then after that is modern and contemporary. So putting in a real traditional kitchen at this point probably isn't going to get you a good return on investment, but those transitional kitchens are going to be helpful to have more of that timeless look that people are hoping for. And with that, those white shaker cabinets that we've been seeing, I feel like we're still going to see that a lot, the white shaker. If your house leans more modern or contemporary, like Matt's does, then you might be seeing some more of those flat panel cabinets, just the flat panel, no, there's no trim around it, which are popular too, but the white shaker is still popular. White is actually still the most popular kitchen cabinet, but we are seeing some darker blues coming in. We're seeing some darker greens coming in our kitchens. And for some people that might be just doing the island, that color, or even the black islands are kind of coming back. So something that kind of makes a little bit of a statement, adds a little bit of drama, but we are still seeing the white as very popular. And I think too, with the white, it could also be because if a kitchen isn't completely open, and we do it in one of those darker paint colors we're talking about, it just tends to make the space feel pretty dark. So I think that's why it's kind of safe to go with those white kitchens. And again, the transitional style is still pretty popular for both the kitchens and bathrooms.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. And I think especially during these times when I think most of us are probably stuck at home, having our home where it's our office, it's our place of living, having it be light and open just seems like it's making such a difference when it comes to attitude and mental state. So absolutely love that you're telling us that that's still on trend.
Yes.
When it comes to appliances, it just seems like everybody for the past, ever since I've been, a home buying adult, everyone's always been talking about stainless steel appliances. It's really all you hear of it. It almost seems like it's just the standard. Are there any other types of appliances that are trendy right now, or that are maybe on their way trending up? And if so, like, are they way more expensive, kind of expensive? Like, what does that look like for most buyers out there?
Good question. So stainless steel appliances are still very popular. And I think they kind of always will be fairly popular just because they have a little bit of an industrial look. Like when you think of a restaurant kitchen, they're going to have stainless steel appliances. So the stainless is still popular, but the next most in demand popular style for appliances is the black stainless. And I know personally, so many of my clients have asked for the black stainless. And then when I ask them later, like, how is that working out for you? How are you liking that? Is it showing, more fingerprints? Does it feel like it just stands out against maybe your cabinets? And everybody I know who's installed them has loved them. So the black stainless is the next most in demand. And it isn't a huge difference in price. In most, even the lower end, well, not lower end, but even we'll say like a Whirlpool, it doesn't have to be, a KitchenAid appliance for it to come in black stainless. Whirlpool carries it. A lot of the just standard appliance companies carry the black stainless. So it's not a huge step up. But there is so many cool things happening with appliances right now, especially smart appliances, appliances that have touch screens. That some of them are using like Alexa and Google Assistant, which I think is really convenient. One that I wish I had was the smart washer and dryers, and they actually send alerts to your phone when the washer and dryer cycles are done. I feel like that would be very, very helpful. So yeah, these smart appliances are amazing. And again, those aren't just the higher end brands. It's the Samsung carries some of those, the Whirlpool carries some of those. So they're not as spendy as you would think. So if you are going to be upgrading appliances anytime soon, whether it's in your laundry room or your kitchen, I would look at some of those smart appliances because they just seem like they would make life a little bit easier. One other thing that I think is interesting.
And some of the smart appliances sometimes almost remind me of that old like 90s Disney movie Smart House, where the appliances end up taking over the house completely. But I mean, definitely a trend that we're trying to stay on top of because it makes life so much easier. In terms of bathrooms, what are you seeing in bathrooms right now? I know you mentioned a couple of things before, but what's in right now?
Okay, so we are still seeing, for bathrooms, we're still seeing a lot of the standalone tubs. So those would be like not the built-in tubs with the jets. We're seeing a lot of the standalone tubs, which have a little bit more of a modern or contemporary feel to them. And we are still seeing the oversized showers. Now, not necessarily as many shower heads. I think some people who thought like, I want 3 or 4 shower heads and body sprayers, I think they've realized like, yeah, we still kind of just use the one. But we are seeing, like for showers, we're seeing, you know, at least one shower head and oftentimes another handheld to go with it. So in the oversized showers are still fairly popular too. And then, yeah, as far as the finishes, we're seeing a lot of white. We're also seeing in bathrooms some of the more lighter neutral wood, we'll say vanities. And then again, the same hardware that we're seeing that's been popular in the kitchen, which is the brushed bronze and also the matte black. And even then too, like some of the matte black plumbing, which I would feel way more comfortable for longevity purposes, putting in like matte black plumbing fixtures over brushed bronze, and then just maybe doing that brushed bronze in different accents, like my bathroom accessories, towel bars and towel rings and my hooks that are in toilet paper holders, because those are easy to replace without breaking the bank.
I love that. I mean, I think the idea of being able to replace things as trends change without having to spend a fortune or redoing your entire house is absolutely huge. And it looks like we have a question in the chat from Kristen. She wants to know, what kind of shower doors do people like right now? What's in when it comes to shower doors, or I guess shower entranceways, in case doors aren't the thing?
Yeah, so something that I've seen that I've had clients ask me about is like the shower doors that almost look like barn doors that roll. And I know they can be, some places have them that are fairly affordable, but I feel like if people are opposed to cleaning, they might not want something on tracks. So I'd say the most popular shower door is going to be what we call the frameless ones. So it's going to have it might have just, it's going to be glass, and to me, it doesn't really matter. I'm seeing a lot of the clear glass. Personally, I do rain glass in mine because I do not want to squeegee that every single day. If people are OCD and they're like fine with that, that's great. But so any kind of textured glass or clear glass is popular. But then if you can go frameless, meaning that basically it's the glass door, it's the handle, and then it's just the hardware hinges that you're seeing, and it doesn't have metal all the way around the door and on the bottom. I think that looks really, again, modern with the crisp and clean, and it is easier to keep clean anytime you don't have a track or that metal around the door. So that's what I hope that answers that question, but.
Thank you. So the next thing I wanted to talk about, we talked about paint colors, but I know in a recent like rental property that we were getting ready, you know, we looked at the property, we were about to paint, we were about to tear out the walls, and then one of the designers we were working with had mentioned, hey, the wallpaper in here is gorgeous. In my head, I was thinking wallpaper is like what my parents had. That's not cool. Mm-hmm. But I keep reading and hearing more and more that I might be mistaken. What's going on with wallpaper? What do people think of it? What are you seeing out there?
Yes, so wallpaper is popular again, for sure. But one thing I always let people know, especially if they're hiring me to help them design their house, is that it is an investment. So it's an investment because the cost of wallpaper is quite a bit more than paint. And then two, it's an investment because because to pay somebody to professionally install it is quite spendy. So just for an example, I had a client that had me come over to their house in Granville. Their house was like 30 years old, and they had a 2-story great room that they had originally, when they bought the house, installed wallpaper in. Now the wallpaper wasn't atrocious by any means. It was very neutral. It would look like something you would see in a hotel. It was very linear and just like a natural color to it, but she felt like it was getting dirty and worn out. So she wanted to replace it. Well, to do her 2-story entry, we were at $5,000 between the paper itself and the installation. And then the installation took weeks because you have an individual there that's, you know, doing it on the walls, and they're using scaffolding. And so long story short is that, yes, wallpaper is coming back, but it is an investment. So I like to have people use it where it's going to make the most impact. So that's kind of like using it for accent spaces. And some of those spaces could be like a powder bath, because that's typically smaller than a bigger master bath, we'll say. Using it as an accent wall, like we'll say like behind your headboard or something, and using it for an accent there. Also, I like to see it in built-in bookcases. Like if you want to use it on the back of where the wall would show or the wood would show, on the back of a built-in or a bookcase. So other places that I like to see wallpaper that you're not overwhelming the room is also on people's ceilings. If you have a tray ceiling or something like that, it's a really fun place is to put some wallpaper up there just to add some character. So yes, I do love wallpaper. And the other thing is, there used to be in the 80s, there was wallpaper stores on every corner. So people kind of knew where to get it. But if you are thinking about adding wallpaper, what I would recommend is if you go to either a Sherwin-Williams store, which you can at the moment, but if you go to Sherwin-Williams online, they have an HGTV collection. They have a Magnolia Homes collection, and then also Scott Living, which is Property Brothers. And there's some really classic, sharp looking wallpaper that won't look like your mom's kitchen wallpaper. So,
someone, Julie, one of our loan officers who's on the call, is asking via the chat. She has seen a lot of the sticker type wallpaper on some of the HGTV shows. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, does it work? Do they have great patterns? Installation? What do you know about the sticker type wallpaper?
I have had people that have really loved the stick and peel wallpaper. The place I have heard of getting it at is from, I think that they've had it at some of the big box stores like Lowe's and Home Depot, and then also Target, I want to say, has some of it. So I know people who haven't done regular wallpaper, but they were easily able to install that stick and peel. And then they just felt good about it afterwards because they were like, hey, if we don't like this or the next homeowners don't like this, it is going to be something that it can come down easily. We won't have to use a steamer and a scraper and all those things. So I would check one of the big box stores or Target and take a look at theirs. And again, I would still possibly recommend doing it in a smaller space like that powder bathroom or an accent wall, just so it doesn't maybe feel as overwhelming. But yeah, I've seen some great patterns out there, and I do think the price point in general is a little bit lower. But again, just like so many things in a house, like tile and other things, sometimes it's not so much the cost of the product as it is the installation of the product. So when you're doing the peel and stick, that's one of the nice things, that if you're able to install it yourself, you're saving a bundle right there on the installation.
And I love that you really talked about wallpaper kind of working when it comes in more in terms of moderation, right? Like as a special accent, and that way it won't cost you a fortune also. But what about how would someone go about choosing like the right pattern? Because it just seems like there's so many, the options are limitless. Every house is a different style. Are there any tips for kind of making that selection if you do decide that you're going to use it?
I would say the safest option would kind of to picture in your mind what would like a chic hotel look like, because it's just another surface. So you don't want that wallpaper. That wallpaper is going to be a little more permanent than, we'll say if it was in a master bedroom. That's a little more permanent than your bedding, than your throw pillows, than your artwork and accessories in the room, which are easy to take off and on. So I would say, go with something that you like, but then make sure that it could be somewhat neutral in a sense. Or, I mean, if you want to make it bold, you could definitely make it bold, but then everything around the room is going to have to really play well with it. But that's also why I like the Sherwin-Williams options that they have, because you kind of know HGTV knows what's on trend, and that's kind of what they're offering. And you also know that like the Property Brothers, if you've seen their work, you know that they're like not overly feminine and just kind of have a nice happy medium. So kind of it's sometimes a matter of going with a brand that you trust. So HGTV, if your own personal taste is very Joanna Gaines, then her Magnolia Home line would probably be a good option.
Okay.
So I'd say looking at the brand would be helpful, and then just knowing that it's going to be harder to change that than it would be the other items probably in the room.
Okay. And I see another question from the audience, and I see it relates because there's a window right behind your head, it looks like. What about windows? Window coverings can often be expensive, I know. So what's not only popular, but what's also maybe like an affordable way to approach window coverings?
They are expensive, yes. And I don't think people plan on it a lot of times. This is a very good point. So I'd say the last, we'll say even 15 years, a lot of people have had, the typical white 2-inch faux wood blinds. I'm not opposed to those. I have some in my own house. They are very transitional, but they aren't that fun to operate. They can get chipped. You can chip those really easily. You can also, in my daughter's room, we have some that are less than a year old, and we just broke the rod off of it that adjusts the light. They can be heavy if they're the ones that you're opening and closing them on their own, and they're not fun to dust.
Right.
My favorite window treatment is, and if I could put it everywhere in my house, I probably would, is roller shades. And people kind of maybe picture the 1970s or 80s, those like white, just opaque roller shades that we used to have. But actually, what I like about them is they have all these different textures now, and they have different opacities. So you can have them be completely room darkening. You can have them have some light coming through, and they're very easy to operate. They kind of go right up. They can be inner mounted, so they're kind of right underneath your trim, and so they're not taking up a lot of the natural light. I really recommend people, if they want something on their sliders, roller shades are a great option for.
I love that. And I know that,
And
I'm sorry. One of the things that I noticed is just, for most buyers out there, when we talk to them, when they get someone to come out and estimate the cost of window coverings, the tendency obviously is they're a salesperson, so they estimate the cost for every single window and cut out in the walls. But oftentimes customers don't need every single window to have its own covering. So I think another great way to say it is to simply choose which windows you want to invest in a great wall cover and window covering for, and then leave some of the ones that you might never ever use just blank and let the natural light come in all the time, if that works for your lifestyle.
That is actually exactly what we do in my house.
I love that.
We live on a lake, and we love the light coming in. So areas that we're not concerned about, we let that light come in, and it makes our house nice and bright. But yeah, then you do in bedrooms, obviously there's a huge concern there. And a lot of times in kids' bedrooms, as you know, you want them to be able to be room darkening when needed. So if you haven't looked into roller shades, I would look them up, because they're just, when people first hear it, they're not quite sure what to expect, but they have a lot of options, and they have a lot of, they're just an easy option for cleaning and longevity. And then I'm also a big fan of curtain panels, which you can easily find online, like Target and Home Goods and Pottery Barn and West Elm all have, amazing selections of curtain panels if you're looking to add some personality and soften a space. And so that's also a good option. And oftentimes, they're just making them, they all look very sharp, and they have like blackout options for those as well. So even if you didn't want to spend a lot of money on blinds for like a kid's bedroom, having a blackout option on curtain panels might be a less expensive option.
That's a great idea. So moving away from like specific things like windows and paint colors, when I think of design, and one of the questions that someone posed to us ahead of time, it seems like everyone goes to, HGTV, Chip and Joanna Gaines, and the only thing that they've been talking about, the big buzzword for probably the past 5 years now, is just farmhouse modern, farmhouse modern, farmhouse modern. That's not my particular style, but I mean, is that
right?
Is that the style everyone's looking for? Is that still one of the big trends? What can you kind of tell us out there about where this trend started and where it might be going?
You're absolutely right. It was one of the #1 trends we were seeing in about 2007. But what reports and studies are showing now is that we are moving away from that a little bit. Now, don't get me wrong. If your house is literally on a farm or you're out on acreage, you feel free to live in the house that you are given. So that is your style of house. You live on a farm or you are out on acreage, and that's the style of house you have. Great. But if you live in a neighborhood and your house is just very traditional or transitional, the styles that are more popular now, we are doing more of that transitional and contemporary. And this is also really interesting. According to Pinterest reports, the #1 most searched design style in the state of Michigan was industrial. Huh. So if you're investing in your house now, or even thinking of listing it at some point in the future, maybe adding some industrial touches is probably going to be something that strikes a chord with buyers, because it's something that people are looking into. So some places where you can add some industrial touches would be in your lighting, in your hardware. I know concrete floors in basements have been popular for quite some time. Also the concrete fireplaces. I know Matt's fireplace in his living room has that concrete look, and it's actually tile, but the concrete fireplaces are very popular, and they don't seem to really be losing any popularity, but they definitely have that industrial look to them. Other things would be, even though we think of barn doors as being farmhouse chic, certain barn doors still have, again, that industrial look. So using some things like that. And then other places is in our furniture. When we think about like metal furniture, the metal bar stools that we see a lot, or wood and metal furniture, or coffee tables, but like furniture pieces like that we can add a little bit of that industrial look. So that seems like that's a direction that Michigan is really resonating with right now.
One of the things I love when you mentioned that you could sprinkle in a little bit of industrial or a little bit of a different style is that I think when consumers are shopping for a new home online, they're scrolling through all these photos. And if every single house has that exact same 2000 to 2008 build kind of look, industrial flair or modern flair or whatever that country style might be that you're into can really make those listing photos stand out from the other homes out there. And then obviously the more people photos, the more showings you might get. So I think there's a couple different reasons to really embrace what you talked about, sprinkling in something a little bit different. I have another question from the audience. Julie wants to know, what's popular for handrails?
Handrails. Okay, so railings and handrails. So that is actually something that I think last year's Parade of Homes was something that I said was something that really stood out. It was people doing different types of railings. So I would say it's kind of going based on the style of the home. If it is a modern home, we are still seeing a lot of that linear, like the metal linear rope that's going horizontally. That's still something I'm seeing a lot of. If it's more of a transitional home, we're still seeing a lot of the wrought iron, just very simple wrought iron. It's not. And then if it's a coastal house, we still sometimes see just some basic nice white squared railings. That's such a good question. I think if you can add, I think in most houses, if you do some type of wrought iron or black metal spindles, I feel like that goes with a lot of people's style. It also lets you see through the railing, which is kind of nice to kind of make the space feel larger. But it works pretty well in most styles. So that's something that I've seen it, and I've still seen it, and I tend to like it. I guess I would say not going overly decorative if you're doing iron railings. If you have something that is going to be decorative about it, only using that maybe every 4 or 5 spindles, and keeping it for the most part. That's just kind of where we're seeing the trends going, is just a little bit more clean and simple.
What about flooring? We talked about everything above the eye line in a house already, but flooring is such a big deal, and the whole house doesn't have to be the same flooring. What's popular right now, and what's functional and affordable?
Yes. Number one, I would say, is the Wood Look LVP, which is the luxury vinyl planks. So the difference is the vinyl. So we've seen laminate for many years now, obviously real hardwood and engineered, but the LVP is a vinyl. And what people are loving about it is that it's waterproof. It's very good for high traffic areas with kids and pets. And I would say it used to be that, so the product Cortec, which is really popular, used to be one of the only companies that was making it, or that was a brand name of it. And they used to start at around like $5 a square foot. Well, that price keeps coming down to where you're able to find, LVP at Home Depot, Lowe's, and any big box store, and it might be starting at $250 a square foot. So it's super affordable. But it's very popular because people can take it right from their entry into their kitchen, and maybe into that powder bath if they want it in their living room. It really just makes the house more connected. But it also, again, is easy to clean, easy to maintain. People used to not want real wood or even engineered wood in their kitchens because they're like, well, the sink is over spraying out, or if my kid goes over and gets some water out of the fridge, overflows onto the floor, and they just didn't want to deal with real wood being damaged by water. And so the LVP has really been a great solution. The other thing I find so interesting is if you go into a lot of the new builds, even the $1 million houses, they are using it in the $1 million houses. You'll see it in the parades and in other areas, but they will even over, you'd think, well, they can afford to just do a wood floor or maybe an engineered, but they're doing the LVP, and I think they're doing it because of the easy maintenance. But the other thing to look for if you're going to be putting one in your own house is I would go with one that has more of the natural wood tones, and also, or even like a bleached or a washed look to it. So the lighter floors are what's popular right now. I wouldn't go, it could definitely have some gray to it, but I wouldn't go with a really gray toned floor. Again, I think people got a little sick of a lot of gray and not having enough of those warm tones to pair with it. And so now we're really seeing, more of the warm toned wood floors. So if you are going with it, I'd go with something that has more of a natural wood look, or the bleached or the washed look. Aside from the LVP, in bathrooms and mudrooms and laundry rooms, we're seeing still that really fun black and white tile. So the name for it is Marola tile, and some of it has some kind of fun, funky patterns where there's like almost like a floral look to it, but then there's also some that have really geometric patterns to it. So I feel like it doesn't have to be overly feminine if you don't want it to be, but we're still seeing a lot of that. And I think people just think it's really fun, and they like that kind of contrast with the black and the white. So those are still popular, like I said, in mudrooms, bathrooms, laundry rooms, and maybe a kitchen if you can get away with it. And then when it comes to carpet, what's been popular, what we've been noticing the trend is for homeowners is the cut and loop, which is also another name for pattern carpet. So it's different than a Berber, which of course was popular in all our basements in the 1980s, but the cut and loop or pattern has designs and textures to it. And what's really popular is like the linear pattern carpets. And I think what people realized is like 10, 15 years ago when we were doing all that thick shag carpeting, and people were realizing it's hard to vacuum. Even after you're done vacuuming, it's hard to feel like that really got down to the base of it and got really clean. They realized that when you're walking on it a lot, it's either getting matted or you're just seeing footprints, and people just weren't happy with that. So the pattern or the cut and loop carpet is a lot nicer. It's great on stairs because it just doesn't show those traffic patterns. And then it's also very easy to use your vacuum on. And so, yeah, we're seeing a lot of that.
I love that. I wish you would have told my parents that about the shaggish looking carpet 20 years ago or so. It was very hard to clean my messes up after myself.
Well, our kids lose their Legos in it.
Yeah, Legos are a tough one, and then they get ate up in the vacuum. Kristen wants to know, would you replace wood floors that need to be refinished with LVP, or would you refinish them? I mean, like, how would you handle that if there are wood floors but they're not looking great? What's a great way to kind of remedy the situation?
Oh gosh, that's such a good question. I had a client who just was going through this very same thing. I would say it depends on how long you plan to stay in the house. If you plan to stay, if you're thinking of selling the house in the next 5 years, you can probably, those wood floors that you're refinishing will probably look just as sharp in that amount of time with that amount of wear and tear. So I would say at that point, it's going to be less work while you're living in the house and remodeling the house to just have somebody come in and sand them down and restain them. That process isn't going to be a very long process compared to having somebody come in, tear out all the floors, and then reinstall while you're living there is going to be a lot more. I think it's just going to be a lot more construction dust and more time, and you're paying for a dumpster and all these other things. But if you're planning on living there longer than 5 years, I think it might be a good investment to make, because the cost, we'll just say, even if the cost of refinishing that floor is maybe $250 a square foot between sanding and then restaining and sealing, and then the cost of, if you went with a lower end LVP that started maybe around $250 or $3 plus the cost of installation, you can kind of look at, it's not that huge difference price wise, depending on if you can install it yourself or not. Most people can't, not many people attempt to refinish their floors themselves. So I think in my friend's case, they were going to possibly put in the LVP, but they think it is their forever home. Or they were thinking about putting an LVP. They decided to stick with their wood floors and just have them refinished because they were looking at cost wise. But I think if it's something that you're having a challenge living with and keeping clean and keeping it because you might have kids or pets or grandkids, then the LVP is definitely, it's going to give you a whole new feel for your house. The other thing, sorry, that seems like that answer is going in circles a little bit because it's going to be a little more expensive for the LVP, depending on if you can install it. But the nice thing is that it's going to be a different story when it comes to maintenance of your home.
Okay, that makes sense. I remember when you helped us, one of the things that my wife and I liked the most was the furniture selections. And you kind of went through our house, you looked at the style, you asked us some questions, and then you took the existing pieces that we had and then helped us create some Pinterest boards to figure out what the additional pieces that we need might look like, and also like where to put them once we bought them. What is hot? I mean, furniture is always like the fun part, right? For most consumers, they get to shop for it. And although you might not be able to shop for it in the store right now due to circumstances, the internet does still exist. So what can you tell us about furniture trends right now, choosing the right furniture on a budget, things like that?
Yes, furniture. So texture is really popular right now when it comes to furniture and accessories. So you're going to be seeing some like rattan, you're going to be seeing the return of some wicker, but you're also going to see also some of that casual beachy feeling furniture. You're also going to see that in the lighting and accessories. So like even, yeah, some of these lighting that includes some rope or some accessories with some rope and caning. The other thing is people really are liking like the natural finishes when it comes to furniture and materials. And people are also liking things that are a little bit more sustainable. Something else we've been seeing is kind of the return of some like masculine furniture styles, even with like that camel colored leather coming back, whether you're using it on like a sofa or a chair, or I've seen people use it on even like pillows or headboards, but some kind of more of these masculine furniture pieces are kind of coming back. Upholstered beds are still very popular, which is great because they're also super affordable. I use upholstered beds for staging because they look great and they're fairly lightweight for moving in and out of houses. But they just, when I'm shopping for clients, I'm able to find them on places like Wayfair. And sometimes they're around like $200 or $300 for these upholstered beds. So those are very popular, but they also have just a really nice tailored look to them. I would say what was popular for a while is a lot of nail head on furniture. We were seeing nail head everywhere. So I would say be careful when it comes to nail head. If you have nail head on your sofa, like let's leave it off of your chairs. Or if you have it on some of your dining room chairs, let's leave it off in some other areas. So just don't go overboard with nail head on furniture. And then something else that's popular, which kind of blends into that industrial look, is unique metal pieces. So that could be like metal bookshelves, metal bookcases. It could also be like your coffee tables and your end tables. So yeah, the kind of adding metal into your decor. And then we are still seeing the mid-century furniture. And again, it's not going to be for every house. I would say kind of go with your house's architectural style as to what furniture you're putting in it. But the mid-century furniture is still quite popular. And that's another thing too, is just making sure scale-wise that you can handle a mid-century piece in your home. If you have a very large home with large ceilings, you can't put a very small scale chair necessarily in that space and make it fit with the rest of the house. So that's kind of what's going on. But looking for places to buy furniture on a budget, I do like Wayfair. They have free shipping and just reading reviews. I also love helping clients find furniture pieces from Costco. So it's not just what's in the store, because they only carry stuff in the store in January and July. And then when it's sold out, it's sold out. But Costco has very high quality pieces. And then they also have really great return policy. If something does happen to a piece of furniture and it's not wearing how you hope it would, you're able to return that. but not just what's in the store. Costco has year-round items online, and they're very affordable, but they're very functional. So a lot of my clients that have purchased pieces from Costco are very happy with how they are wearing. And then another place would be Talsma Furniture. So I've been working with Talsmas for many years. I really like their sales team. If I look for a piece of Bassett furniture from Talsma's that I know is going to be really reliable and it's going to be a good piece longevity wise for my client, it's cheaper for me to buy it at Talsma's than for me to look on Bassett's website. So their pricing is great. They have free delivery. And then again, if there's any issues with the fabric or with like the way something is, with how it's my clients being able to live with that product, it's something that they're able to call them and try to figure out a solution. So Talsma Furniture, awesome. I feel like has really great pricing and great staff to work with.
One question kind of from the audience on the same line is, for people out there who've never ordered furniture online, I mean, I can just tell you my parents have definitely never ordered furniture online. I have, we've had easy returns with Wayfair and some more sites, but any tips for ordering furniture online for people that maybe haven't jumped into that game before?
Absolutely. Number one, read the reviews, because those are your best friends. Those are people who are going to tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly. So I would say read the reviews. Also pay attention to the size. So look under the dimension. Every piece of furniture should have a part that says dimensions or specs. And then go ahead, get out your blue painter's tape and tape it out in the room and see if it's going to fit. Looking at the height, make sure you're looking at the height, width, everything. I know a lot of times when you look online and you see an armchair, it looks like, oh, that's going to look great in the space. And then when you see it in person, it looks like a miniature of what you thought it was going to be. So paying attention to those heights. If there's a piece of furniture in your house that you really love, but you're ready to replace, measure that piece of furniture that's been comfortable for you for the last 10 years and see how deep was that sofa, or how high was the back on my chair, or how wide is that desk that I'm trying to replace. Like, you use what you already have and love as a guide to what you're looking for. So I'd say pay attention to reviews and definitely pay attention to the dimensions when you're ordering furniture online.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. So I want to kind of end by talking about what we think is going to happen next. So okay. We're all stuck at home, and we already know that it's already buying season. Every spring, there's always a few listings, lots of buyers, lots of activity. It seems like although the economy is in turmoil, inventory is still low in town. And a lot of people are stuck in their homes, which for some people that absolutely love their homes, they're going to stay and they're going to be committed. But a lot of what I'm hearing from our agent friends out there is they have a lot of customers who, after a week stuck in their houses, especially people with smaller houses, they are ready to move once this thing is over. So for anyone who might need to do a little bit of like spring cleanup to kind of get their house ready to list, what tips and easy affordable tricks would you offer to those people?
Okay, perfect. I actually just did like an Instagram, Facebook series on this because I always talk to my homeowners about the 5 Ds of staging. So I'll just tell you really as quickly as I can, but if you want, you can go over to my Facebook or Instagram, which is at Home Design and Staging. And you can talk, sorry, that's my dog. Snuck in here somehow. But the 5 Ds of staging, the first one would be to depersonalize, which is taking down family photos, very taste specific collections, trophies, posters, calendars, and those types of things, and going ahead and packing those away. What we're doing there is just kind of making that space so that when a potential homeowner walks in, they can see themselves and their family living there, and they don't get distracted by your existing family. The second one would be decluttering. So just kind of looking through one thing you could do is even stand at the doorway to a room and take a picture on your phone or your iPad, and then kind of look and see what that perspective looks like, what's standing out as far as clutter. So clutter is just something that we recommend editing. So if we have a lot of, we'll say in our living room, if we have our remotes all sitting out in Kleenex boxes and a stack of magazines, blankets and baskets all over the floor, dog beds, that would be considered clutter. What it is doing is it's distracting a buyer from seeing the focal point in that space, which might be, the beautiful view out the window, or it might be the fireplace. So we want to declutter. The next one is don't darken. So we want to make sure that we have all the light bulbs in our house are working, that they're the same type of bulb. So we aren't using daylight in one area and soft white in a different area, just using all the same type of light bulb. Bringing in extra lights if we need to, and making sure that all of our window treatments are open. So that's the don't darkening. The next one is detail. So this would definitely be an easy one to do if you're bored at home, because we say if you wanted top dollar for your vehicle, you wouldn't just run it through the car wash, you'd have it detail clean. So it's going to be, going ahead and cleaning some of those things you might not clean on a daily basis, maybe wiping down the kitchen cabinets. It might be a lot of times for homeowners, it's the ceiling fans and the bath vent fans. Maybe taking a look at your grout in the bathroom showers and making sure all that looks like it's in good shape. So that's the detail side. And then the last part is design, which is just what I specialize in, coming into your house and, giving you an actual prioritized list of each room, what furniture you need to rearrange, remove, or replace.
It would have helped if I unmuted myself.
Oh,
Thank you
sorry.
so much. That was insanely helpful. And I think everybody out there now has a much better understanding for interior design, what's coming up in 2020, as well as what they can do and advise their clients for our realtor colleagues that are in the audience. Do we have any final questions for the audience before we let Natalie get back to her dog and her family? Going once, going twice. Oh, we have one more message. Julie wants to know, do you help design home exteriors as well?
I do. When it comes to paint colors or siding, yes, I do help people with home exteriors, whether it's like just, if that's the one thing they're focusing on, I can do that, whether it's kind of called like a paint consultation. But when it comes to like an occupied home staging consult, I do that as well. I let them know, do they need to change out their door color or their shutters, or if they're thinking of replacing siding or paint, I give them those options as well. But yes, I definitely have great ideas for paint and exteriors. I wouldn't say that I recommend landscaped I don't necessarily recommend things for landscaping home exteriors unless it's just easy options for somebody who's selling their house. But yeah, I definitely do help with home exteriors. Good question.
And I know you shared your Instagram, but just to kind of end this, what would be the best way for someone to get in touch if they wanted to hire you, ask you some questions, things like that?
They could go, so on my Facebook and Instagram. Otherwise, my website is www.athomedesignandstaging.com. And then right now we're offering online services since we want to protect everybody and do our best to stay at home. So we're offering e-design, which is online, and also online staging consults. So if you if you're a realtor and you have a client who wants to use this time wisely, we are still booking those consults with them. And the process is actually fairly easy, and they're getting a lot of great information.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today. We're looking forward to hopefully doing this maybe once a year with you. And again, enjoy your time at home. Thanks, guys. Thanks for Bye.